Have you ever noticed that some people don't need to insist, and yet things still organize themselves around them? They don't explain too much. They don't change their minds every time we talk. They don't adapt to fit. They arrive whole. And this creates an immediate effect. Now observe the opposite. When someone hesitates internally, the body gives it away. Breathing becomes short. Time seems tight. Presence loses importance. Nothing bad happens, but nothing sticks. There's a silent law at work here. The world only responds continuously to whom a stable internal direction is maintained. No matter how much you want it, no matter how much you think about it, no matter how much you plan, if your mind still consults fear before each step, its aura does not solidify. And without consolidation, no prosperity lasts forever. Perhaps you've never called it indecision. Perhaps he called it caution, analysis, waiting for the right moment. But the body knows the difference, and the world too. Today, you're not going to learn anything new. You'll realize which was already weakening their field. Because when that becomes clear, the decision is not forced. It happens. And when the decision is made, a aura muta. That's the law. Most people believe that a lack of results stems from external factors. Lack of opportunity. Lack of support. Bad luck. This belief seems comfortable. And that's precisely why it weakens. Because what truly weakens a career path is not the absence of opportunities. It is the absence of internal decision. An indecisive mind creates a weak aura, and that's not judgment. It works. That's the law. When the decision isn't clear internally, the surrounding field loses density. Presence fluctuates. The body hesitates. The gaze doesn't hold up. The voice loses weight. And the world responds to that. Always. Nothing answers someone who hasn't yet decided who they are. Nothing is fixed where everything is negotiable. Nothing remains where identity changes with every stimulus. Indecision is not just a state of mind. She is a sign. She communicates insecurity. It communicates fragmentation. It reports a lack of internal leadership. And the world, silently, respects this sign. People believe that deciding is about choosing between options. It is not. Deciding is to end internal conflicts. It's about aligning thought, emotion, and action in the same direction. It's about stopping consulting fear before acting. As the mind wavers, the aura weakens. You can see that clearly. There are people who don't say much. They don't explain too much. They are not justified. But when they enter an environment, something gets organized. Conversations change. Opportunities arise. Respect comes before the request. It's not charisma. It's not technical. It's a consolidated internal decision. These people don't spend their time asking could it be. They live from is. This changes everything. An indecisive mind lives in constant negotiation. Negotiate with yourself. Negotiate with fear. Negotiate with the past. Negotiate using the gaze of others. Every negotiation drains energy. Every doubt fragments the field. Every hesitation weakens the signal. A strong aura doesn't come from perfection. It is born from wholeness. Wholeness is when you are fully present in your own choice. Even though we don't have all the results yet, even though the path is still being formed, the world responds to clarity, not absolute certainty. It responds to firmness, not to the absence of risk. This always works. When you make the decision, your body relaxes. When the body relaxes, presence stabilizes. When presence stabilizes, the world cooperates. This chaining is automatic. An indecisive mind keeps the nervous system on high alert. And a system on high alert cannot sustain expansion. He just reacts. Reacting doesn't build prosperity. Reacting consumes. Prosperity requires permanence. And staying requires a decision. Decision-making is not about rigidity. It's a clear direction. A determined mind is not noisy. She is silent. She doesn't need to prove herself all the time. She doesn't explain herself at every step. She simply moves forward with consistency. Most people believe they need to be sure before making a decision. This is the opposite of reality. Certainty is born after the decision, never before. While you wait to feel secure enough to make a decision, you remain weak in energy, because the field understands the waiting. You can see the doubt. He notices the lack of leadership. This is not punishment. It's mirroring. Life doesn't respond to vague intentions. She responds to the positioning. When you take a stand internally, even in silence, something changes. It wasn't inside. The body aligns itself. The gaze becomes fixed. Breathing slows down. And this internal change alters the field. A strong aura doesn't crave attention. She doesn't ask for validation. She doesn't chase after approval. She takes up space naturally. This naturalness stems from a non-negotiated decision. Negotiating too much with yourself creates noise. Noise disperses energy. Scattered energy sustains nothing. Therefore, indecisive people attract short cycles. They begin, param, they resume. They give up. Not due to a lack of ability, but due to a lack of axle. The axis is born from a firm decision. A firm decision is not impulsive, she is calm. It doesn't stem from anxiety. It comes from clarity. When you truly decide, you don't feel euphoria. Feel settlement. Something is settling down. Things are stabilizing. Something needs to stop being discussed internally. That inner silence is power. And the world recognizes this silence. A faint aura attempts to persuade. A strong aura, it is not necessary. An indecisive mind keeps asking, what if it goes wrong? What if I lose? What if it's not the right time? These questions seem prudent, but when repeated, they create a pattern of retreat. The body learns to retreat. The aura learns to shrink. And the world responds with less, not out of cruelty. For the sake of consistency, life expands where there is inner space. And interior space is born from that decision. Deciding is choosing a path and shut the others down internally, not angrily. Not afraid, but with maturity. As long as you keep doors open out of insecurity, you won't cross any of them. That's the law. A true decision doesn't shout. She supports it. She doesn't demand that others agree. It doesn't need to be announced. She expresses herself through her posture. No rhythm, in the absence of a rush. A determined mind does not live in a state of alert. She lives in a state of being driven. And direction creates magnetism. Magnetism does not come from desire. It comes from silent conviction. Conviction is not intense emotion. It's about consistency. When you make a decision, you start to internally repeat the same position. And this repetition creates identity. A strong identity creates a strong aura. A person with a defined identity does not become fragmented by every external opinion. She listens, evaluates, but it doesn't dissolve. This generates immediate respect. Even without words, the world senses when someone is whole. And the world adjusts. Indecision communicates. I still don't know who I am. The decision communicates. I know where I am, even though the final destination is still being determined. Prosperity does not require complete clarity about the future. It demands firmness that is not present. When you secure the present, the future takes shape. This always works. An indecisive mind weakens the aura because it sends contradictory signals. One day, I want to. In the other one, it retreats. One day, believe it. No doubt about it. The field doesn't know how to respond, and then it responds with instability. A determined mind sends a single signal, constant, calm, firm, and the world responds with continuity. This continuity is prosperity. Prosperity is not about excess. It's a steady flow. Stable cash flow requires sustained decision-making. Deciding once is not enough. It is necessary to remain determined. This permanence is built in everyday life. In the little moments, in micro-choices. When something uncomfortable arises and you don't back down, something gets stronger. When someone asks a question and you don't get disorganized, something falls into place. When fear arises and you don't negotiate your identity, something becomes entrenched. This is invisible training. And this training creates an aura that doesn't waver. An aura that doesn't waver conveys security. Security is an attractive feature. Security is paramount. The world likes what is predictable in terms of energy, not what is rigid, based on what is consistent. Consistency comes from the decision. A decisive person doesn't need to control everything. She trusts her own leadership. This trust is not blind, it is being built. It arises from repeating the same internal choice until the body recognizes it as safe. When the body recognizes this, the anxiety decreases. When anxiety decreases, presence increases. And as the presence grows, the aura changes. This change is not visible as a spectacle, it is felt. People approach each other differently. Opportunities arise effortlessly. The invitations are arriving. Not because you asked, but why you are ready. Ready to support. A faint aura tries to hold everything together forcefully. A strong aura doesn't need to be held back. She support. To endure is different from to control. Support comes from an internal decision. I'll stay. I support it. I will not back down. This decision is a game changer. You don't need to know all the steps. You just need to stop dividing yourself. Internal division weakens any team. Wholeness strengthens. When you feel this internal adjustment now, it's not your imagination, it's alignment. Something within you stops wavering. Something to stop arguing about. Something is taking shape. This feeling of settling is the beginning of a strong aura. It doesn't come with euphoria. Take it easy. Calm down signatures. Deeply rooted calm. Inevitable calm. From this point, you don't need to run. You don't need to prove it. You don't need to convince anyone. You just hold on, and the world responds. That's the law. This is inevitable. This always works. By the time you finish here, something in you will have already changed, not as an idea. As a state, his presence is different, more complete, more stable. You don't need to run. You foster greater prosperity. And now, the world is beginning to notice.